Hey friend, Roger Christopherson here again with another first listener review. And like I said on the previous one, there was so much stuff coming out this weekend to babble about that I didn't know where to start. So I'm trying to get some of it in. I don't usually do this many, but there was so much. I can't even do it, babble about everything I want to, but I'm picking the bigger ones. But before we get into that, please like, share, and subscribe to keep this music alive, because that's what we do here. We talk about the bands that we love, keep their music playing, we share our thoughts between each other and what we think, and that's how we keep this music out there and kick in and all that stuff. It's pretty much what this channel is about. So if you're into that, cool. If not, then thanks for checking it out, but you'll be still really disappointed because that's what we do here. Anyway, talking about 5150, the expanded deluxe edition, or whatever they're calling it, expanded edition, I guess. First, studio album with Sammy.hagar, who was like, I remember back when this was all going on. 1984, the album, the year, all that, it was huge. They were introducing way more keyboards in the band. The band fell apart. David Lee Roth left, did his thing with whatever he did, and the band had to carry on. And a lot of people did not like the fact that Sammy.hagar came into that. But the funny thing is, I was a Van Halen fan. Actually, that Van Halen 2 was like one of my favorite albums at that point in time. But so was VOA from Sammy.hagar. And so when I heard that they were like coming together and doing something, I thought that was like great. I could picture it in my head how good it was going to sound. And the funny part was, I remember sitting at my grandparents' house because they had cable and they were doing Farm Aid. And if anybody remembers that, the very first one, they broadcast on something. I don't remember what channel it was, but I didn't have cable, so I'd go to my grandparents' house and watch it, recorded it and all that stuff, VHS. And I still have that too. And Sammy.hagar was doing the set. And at the end of it, Eddie Van Halen comes out and they did a couple songs. And I was like, oh, it's true, it's really happening. So anyway, so when that album came out, first song I heard, it was on the radio before I got the album, it was Why Can't This Be Love? And I remember hearing this, it was weird. I was like, this really isn't Van Halen, this is weird, what's going on? I didn't know what to think of it. I don't remember if I liked it or didn't like it, but I remember thinking it was strange. And I remember, I was actually just talking with my son about this today. I said it's weird how you hear these albums like later on, you can picture exactly the first time you heard some of these songs. And it was in my parents' living room on the radio. And just thinking, that was a weird guitar solo. And, I could hum every single note of it at this point. I've heard it so many times. But at that point in time, it was really strange to hear that particular solo. So when the rest of the album came out, I got it. And I remember driving around in my buddy's car and we were listening to the whole thing. Summer Nights was like one of the first ones I remember that really jumped off at me. And Good Enough was actually Get Up, just these killer kicking songs on there too. And just hearing Sammy just sing his butt off on this album. I had forgotten this was produced by Mick Jones, by the way. That's the kind of, when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, I'd completely forgotten about that. But I do remember the one thing I thought about it at that point in time. Yeah, the songs are great, but the production seems a little thin. It didn't have that oomph. It just had a really thin, more tight, compressed, type 80s sounding production, if you know what I'm talking about there. And I remember very clearly thinking that back then. I was always hoping this would get a remaster. So, getting to the remaster part of this, and I'm very, on the edge of my seat when it comes to these things. Most of the time, I really don't like remasters. I just feel like it takes a lot of, whatever the essence of whatever album it was, sometimes it takes that away, even though the sound quality might be better in some aspects. Sometimes I feel like it loses whatever that special thing it had to begin with was. This is not one of those cases where it took that away. I actually do like the remaster of this. Some of that really tinny high-end stuff that was always there, that weak feeling at the high end, it's really toned down a lot. I don't feel that, and I feel a little bit more warmth in the bottom end, which I think this album always needed. Is it perfect? No, but it's definitely better. So I can live with that. It just feels like it has a little bit more oomph to it in the bottom end, and it doesn't have that high annoying emptiness at the top end, I guess. I don't really know how to explain it other than that, but that's always a feeling I got. And this one actually really sounded good. I really liked the way this one sounded, which I can't believe I'm saying. So that being said, it was fun listening to it again. Love that. There's not a bad song on this. Even Inside, which is not my favorite Van Halen song, I don't know why. It just has the vocals on it. Just kind of leave me wanting something better. But the guitar playing on that one's killer, so that kind of makes up for it. And I'm glad it was the last song on the album because I really think it wouldn't fit anywhere else on there. But that we've heard that album enough times. Yeah, I mean everybody's heard this. It's been 40 years. I mean we've all heard this album. So what are we really talking about on here? The extra stuff, the edits, the live things, and all that stuff. I can say that, you know, Best of Both Worlds. There's the edit. There's a Dreams edit. The Love Walks In edit. Yeah, you can hear a little bit of difference in the mix. Some things sound a little different. I don't even remember what they edited out here and there. I listened to it once. That was really all I needed there. The extended versions, Why Can't This Be Love and Dreams, were definitely cool. I had not heard those before, which I can't believe, but that was worth hearing and listening to those. And then they threw in some live stuff at the end of that disc, I think probably just to fill up space, because quite honestly, neither one of those are very long. They're probably, I don't even think they were even 40 minutes long. Either one of those discs, and they throw in at the end of it Best of Both Worlds, Rock and Roll, and Love Walks In live. And those mixes, actually, it was strange because I noticed the mix, I think those were taken, if I remember right. Of course, I never leave my stuff anywhere near me where I can read it. I think those were all from, no, those were not from New Haven, but anyway, the mix of those was different than the New Haven stuff. Like the crowd was not as loud in it. Like the mix was just pretty much similar to what the mix of the New Haven concert was, but the audience noise was a lot more subdued. Which brings me to disc 4, which is the New Haven Live Without a Net concert. And this VHS, because that's the way it came out, this VHS is probably the most watched VHS of any VHS I've ever owned in my entire life. Oh, I watched this concert so many times. I can't even tell you how many times I watched that. Just the energy of the show, which I know some people have said they hammed it up because they knew they were being filmed, but I've seen them live after this. I got to see them on the Monsters of Rock tour. They were just as energetic when I saw them back then. I remember that show very well. They were the headliners. They did, you know, I was in an arena, so I'm in a rich stadium up in Buffalo, and they put on so much energy that even sitting in a huge place like that, it seemed like they were just, you know, putting on a great performance for us. So anyway, I don't know if I believe that. I think they just were very happy to be out there doing what they're doing and loving life. And especially that guitar solo of Eddie's, I probably watched that. I can't even tell you. I'd like rewind and watch that solo over and over and over again. For whatever reason, I can't play guitar or anything like that, but it's fun to sit down and watch it. That being said, they still don't have all the songs. Like, they still didn't include all the songs from that show. The running order of the songs is not the order that they actually played at the show. They actually opened with You Really Got Me, from what I understand, and that's not included anywhere on here. And they also recorded Dreams that night, and that's not included anywhere on here. But they did throw some extra stuff on the CD, but they also didn't play some of the stuff on disc 4 here of the CD that was on the Live Without a Net show. But luckily enough, there is the Blu-ray version of this in, you know, high definition that does include the original Live Without a Net. So that's all there. I wish they'd kind of done what they did with the whole Rush thing that just came out, the Grace Under Pressure box set that just came out. They actually included that whole live show in there and didn't exclude any songs. I wish they'd done that with this, but they didn't. So that being said, the listening to the concert again was actually a lot of fun. Wild Thing included in here. I was expecting that to kind of suck, but quite honestly, I kind of enjoyed it. They actually had Sammy and Eddie kind of trading licks back and forth in it, which was kind of cool. And they had Sammy out there playing guitar in a few songs, which I really don't think he did much of after this tour. except for when he went out there and he did his acoustic thing with the Eagles Fly later on in their, the Van Hagar area there. But that was included on here. The thing is, they ended that with Rock and Roll, the CD, and for whatever reason, I don't know, it bugs me. I've heard hundreds of bands do this, and I've already heard this before, so it was no shocker, but why the heck can't they get the words right? Like, any cover band I've heard do this, 9 out of 10 times, they don't sing the words right. I don't know why it's so hard. Like, it's one of those songs everybody thinks they know until they go to do it, and they realize they really don't know it. It kind of falls into that category, but that's a tiny little pet peeve, but I already knew that, listening and seeing this show before, I already knew that was the case with it. But it was definitely fun listening to it again, actually hearing it just on CD. That was a new experience, so that was kind of fun. I haven't ever been able to drive around and listen to that show before, so that was kind of a fun thing to be able to do. So, if just for that sake alone, the box set here, or the expanded edition, it's not really much of a box set, I guess. I guess it is, but there really isn't a whole lot of extra stuff in here. Other than the live is on it's on CD now and a Blu-ray, so that's like the main thing. That CD2 of extra stuff is nice to have a little bit extra, but they could have just done that. Seriously, they could have just done that as like a bonus stuff on any other, reissue or whatever they had done. So the really only extra real thing that they're adding here at all is the fact that you can hear the concert on CD and have the Blu-ray of it. So if you're into that, cool, it's here for you. And that's pretty much that. That's all I got to say about this one. Love this band. I love every era of Van Halen. I can't pick one or the other, so I'm not gonna even fall into that category because I really can't. There's things I love about the Roth era. There's things I love about the Hagar era. There's not really anything I dislike about either one. So, but there's a lot to love. So that being said, until they do their next one, which I'm sure, I guess OU812 is already in the works. So, until that one comes out, we'll see you.